December 12th, 2000.
The decision came late, and it came in several parts. But the sum of those parts adds up to defeat for the Gore campaign. George W. Bush appears to be our president-elect. Tonight, the court rules.
From ABC News, this is Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Bill Daley, the chairman of Al Gore's campaign, issued a statement very late tonight in which he said the Supreme Court's decision is a complex one, that Al Gore and his staff want to study it, that they will not have anything further to say until tomorrow morning. But after all this time, you are surely entitled to a clear answer as to who has won the presidential election of the year 2000. That answer, when all is said and done, finally appears to be George W. Bush. But the clarity is difficult to find in the tortured split decision handed down by the Supreme Court of the United States late this evening. And in his dissenting opinion, Justice Stevens reflects a deep concern that the court may have inflicted a damaging wound on itself. He writes, although we may never know with complete certainty the identity of the winner of this year's presidential election, the identity of the loser is perfectly clear. It is the nation's confidence in the judge as an impartial guardian of the rule of law. We will try tonight to explain how the court has ruled and why that ruling amounts to a declaration of victory for Governor Bush. But in so doing, let me warn you at the outset, it will be necessary to explain also why the Chief Justice was in such an apparent rush to get the ruling out before midnight. Today, remember, is December 12th. That is the date by which Florida's slate of electors would have to be certified to avoid the possibility of a later congressional challenge. Tonight's decision was released with less than 2 hours to spare. But let's go now to some of the key passages in the majority decision, which overturned the Florida Supreme Court's ruling for a manual recount. Here's Nightline correspondent John Donvan.
Ted, the document runs to 65 pages. 13 of those pages are the per curiam decision, or the majority decision that the majority was able to agree on, in which they lay out how they got to the decision they got to. And they go right to, on page 6, to the central question. They say, the question before us is whether the recount procedures the Florida Supreme Court has adopted are consistent with its obligation to avoid arbitrary and disparate treatment of the members of its electorate. And they actually answer that question and hint how they're going to answer that question 2 pages earlier when they say, with respect to the Equal Protection Clause, we find a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. And then over the next several pages, they explain what they did, which was basically to look at the issue of the balloting, and they reached the conclusion that in Florida, the recount that had been set up would allow for all sorts of standards all over the place for counting what is a ballot and what is not. And they finally come to the conclusion, after examining the recount that was proposed, as follows. The recount process, in its features here described, is inconsistent with the minimum procedures necessary to protect the fundamental right of each voter in the special instance of a statewide recount under the authority of a single state judicial officer. Our consideration is limited to the present circumstances, for the problem of equal protection in election processes generally presents many complexities. And then they come to their conclusion on this particular one. They're saying, upon due consideration of the difficulties identified to this point, it is obvious that the recount cannot be conducted in compliance with the requirements of equal protection and due process without substantial work. What they're basically getting to there is the question at this point of time. As you said, it's December 12th. They're aware of this deadline, and they come again to the conclusion the statute requires that any controversy or contest that is designed to lead to a conclusive selection of electors be completed by December 12th, that is today. As they say, the date is upon us, and there is no recount procedure in place under the state Supreme Court's order that comports with minimal constitutional standards. They then jump to the conclusion quite quickly. I don't mean to say jump to, they move to the conclusion. The December 12th date, it is evident that any recount seeking to meet the December 12th date will be unconstitutional for the reasons we have discussed. We reverse the judgment of the Supreme Court of Florida ordering a recount to proceed. And then the final page, The judgment of the Supreme Court of Florida is reversed, and the case is remanded for further proceedings not inconsistent with this opinion. Pursuant to this court's Rule 45.2, the clerk is directed to issue the mandate in this case forthwith. It is so ordered. Now, there were several dissenting opinions. In fact, all 4 justices who voted against this conclusion wrote their own dissenting opinions. And just to give you flavor from 2 of them, Justice Breyer writes, "In this highly politicized matter, the appearance of a split decision runs the risk of undermining the public's confidence in the court itself. That confidence is a public treasure. It has been built slowly over many years, some of which were marked by a civil war and the tragedy of segregation. It is a vitally necessary ingredient of any successful effort to protect basic liberty and indeed the rule of law itself." And finally, a sampling from Justice Ginsburg's dissent. She writes, "In sum, the court's conclusion that a constitutionally adequate recount is impractical is a prophecy that the court's own judgment will not allow to be tested. Such an untested prophecy should not decide the presidency of the United States. I dissent." But her "I dissent" overruled by the majorities. It is so ordered. 4 words that, as you say, seem to mean that George Bush goes to the White House. Ted?
Thank you, John. We're joined now live from outside the Supreme Court by ABC News' Jackie Judd, who covers the court for us, and ABC News legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. I must say, I didn't envy you when that decision came down and you had to try to wend your way through it, but you've had a little more time to consider it. Jackie, give us a little bit of the flavor, first of all, of what it was like when the decision came down.
You saw it on the air, Ted. It was frenzied. It was difficult. It was a complex decision. It was ambiguous. And outside the court, there was an entirely different feeling. You were up here yourself during the first argument, Ted, and you know that there were lots of protesters here for Bush and for Gore. They were loud, they were passionate. You could always tell when their guy was up because they were cheering, and when the other guy was down, they were down. But tonight, surprisingly, this crowd was very subdued. And I think it was because they couldn't figure out, maybe from our own coverage, who exactly had won in this ruling. And so for about 2 hours, this crowd that had been so boisterous, so animated, they were quiet. They were trying to figure it out too.
Let's swing over to Jeffrey Toobin for a moment. And Jeffrey, there is legalese and then there is journalese. See if you can translate some of that legalese into journalese for us. We've been focusing to quite a large extent on the dissent because it is so bitter. But it is, after all, the majority that rules here, the majority that seems to have put the presidency now finally in the hands of Governor George W. Bush. Tell us why.
Well, in journalisticese, Bush won and Gore lost. And the reason he won, the reason Bush won, is that the court objected to the way the Florida courts set up the recount rules. Basically, the court was offended by the notion that an identical dimple on an identical ballot could be counted one way in one part of the state and one way in a different part of the in a different way in a different part of the state. That was a violation. I think the important thing to focus on, and where some of the mystery about this opinion was, on the issue of remand, sending the case back to the Florida courts. Because there, it at least appears on the surface that possibly Florida could come up with procedures that the court might find satisfactory. But I think when you read the dissenting opinions and when you read the majority opinion carefully, you see that that's really an illusion. That in fact, even though they are technically sending the case back to Florida, in fact, there is no way that Florida could comply with this opinion in a way that would allow the votes to be recounted and Gore to win.
Jackie, as you read this decision, or all of the decisions, the dissenting as well as the majority opinions, is it your impression that the justices wished that there had been a little more time here, that they felt as frustrated by the lack of time as everybody else?
I don't know about that, Ted, but I think that they were aware and they were concerned about the politically charged environment in which they found themselves. At the very end of the majority opinion, Justice Rehnquist talks about how, essentially in journalese, that we didn't ask for this job, but it came to us and we've done the best we can. And I think that that is a nod to the possibility, the strong possibility that, and fairly or unfairly, that there will be political criticism of this court for what it has done tonight.
Jeffrey, before we leave you, let me just ask you to comment briefly on why you think the tone of dissent was as bitter as it appears to have been.
Well, I was struck by the difference in tone. The majority is very straightforward, very narrow, very almost regretful in tone. I think the dissenters really tried to place this case in historical context and understood that what they wrote today will be in their obituaries, because they know they will never decide a more important case. And I think a lot of the bitterness had to do with the stay that was issued on Saturday, even more than the opinion today, because that several of the dissenters said, you know, this case, this opinion, the court took away Florida's opportunity to get the result right. So we will never know. I think that's the core of the bitterness of the four dissenters.
All right, Jackie and Jeffrey, thank you both very much. Earlier this evening, actually just a few minutes ago, the chairman of the Democratic Party, Ed Rendell, issued a brief statement. Let's take a look at that now.
It is very likely that Governor Bush will be the president of the United States, and I think the vice president's going to call for uniting behind him, and I would too. The election's over, and we've got to get some things done for this country.
Parenthetically, some of the members of the Bush campaign seem to be a little bit disenchanted by that statement. They're going to have their own, but as I said, they want to read the decision carefully, and they'll have more to say tomorrow morning. Jim Baker, the man who has been heading up the legal drive for Governor Bush, also came out. He issued a statement minutes ago. Let's take a look at that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've just spoken to Governor Bush and Secretary Cheney. They are, of course, very pleased and gratified that 7 justices of the United States Supreme Court agreed that there were constitutional problems with the recount ordered by the Florida Supreme Court. This has been a long and arduous process for everyone involved on both sides. Thank you, and good evening.
Mr. Baker, do you feel it's over now?
And that was it. Mr. Baker did not, as you saw there, take any questions. When we come back, we will discuss how the 9 justices do their work with the dean of the Stanford Law School and 2 people who clerked for Supreme Court justices.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by MasterCard.
Cannonballs, $129 online. 88 hula hoops, $60 online. Elephant shampoo, $42 online. Not having to pay for any weird charges that show up on your bill? Priceless. With MasterCard, you're not responsible for unauthorized purchases on the web or anywhere. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard.
Is my meeting today in the morning or the afternoon?
Afternoon.
My office.
Her office.
Good. Love you.
Electronic organizers. Just one of hundreds of business gift ideas in Office Depot's Holiday Gift Guide. Pick one up at the Office Depot Superstore near you.
Oh, and it's your mom's birthday Friday.
Taking care of business for the holidays.
I've got 6 months to live.
Wednesday.
Give me something I can hold on to.
Problem.
Don't worry, we're going to take care of you. An all-new Gideon's Crossing, Wednesday on ABC.
Craving that one-of-a-kind taste of Long John Silver's? Now you can satisfy your cravings with our new Seafood and More meal. Our famous golden fried fish, crispy battered shrimp, and one of our great new crab cakes. Tender, tasty crab. Done that special Long John Silver's way. Served with a delicious new sauce with hush puppies, fries, and slaw. Our new Seafood and More meal. Now just $3.99. Come in now, because deals like this don't last long. Long John Silver's. You can't resist the cravings.
A year ago, my credit was wrecked. For 6 months now, I've been paying my bills on time. The car loan that I got from calling the Get a Yes Network It's helping me take the final dents out of my credit.
Call the Get a Yes Network using your touch-tone phone. This is a free call 24 hours a day. Call 1-800-GET-A-YES.
I don't like spending time at the car finance office. The Get a Yes Network accepted my application over the phone, and all the paperwork was ready when I arrived at the car dealership.
If you've had your credit in a mess, call 1-800-GET-A-YES. That's 1-800-GET-A-YES.
And joining us now live, Maureen Mahoney. She is a lawyer in private practice here in Washington and a former clerk for Chief Justice Rehnquist. She has argued several cases before the Supreme Court, and she joins us here in our Washington studios. Also here in Washington is Mark Tushnet, a professor of constitutional law at Georgetown University. And joining us now from Stanford University is Kathleen Sullivan. She is the dean of the Stanford University Law School. She has also argued several cases before the U.S. Supreme Court, and only last week advised the legal team for Vice President Gore. Maureen Mahoney, I think you've probably had the best chance to read this entire decision in relative peace and quiet. Tell me what leaps out at you.
Well, I haven't had a chance to read the entire thing in peace and quiet, but the main thing that leaps out is, first of all, I don't think there is any ambiguity that the election contest is over now. The court is actually quite clear in the per curiam part of the decision that the deadline was intended to be final by the Florida legislature, and that's the end of it. It has remanded it to the Florida Supreme Court for proceedings that are not inconsistent with this opinion, and as I read it, they have actually left no room whatsoever for the Florida Supreme Court to order any kind of a recount at this phase.
In effect, by remanding it back to the Florida Supreme Court, it almost seemed to me as though they were saying, you know, you've still got a mess to clear up here. It's not going to help us with this election, but see if you can clean it up before the next one comes along. Is that fair?
Well, it's always the case that when a higher court reverses it, remands it back down to the other court just so they can, in effect, close the docket. And that's really all that the per curiam opinion is saying here. So the case, as I read it, and I think as others will read it, is over. They have resolved those issues. And I guess the other thing I'd say that leaps out is that it is interesting that they have actually seized upon a ground which goes to the fundamental fairness of the remedy that had been ordered. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, what's fair, what's not fair, and at the end of the day, 7 justices of the Supreme Court concluded that what had been ordered here was so unfair as to violate the Constitution.
Can you explain this? This may seem like a technicality, Professor Tushnet, but before this program is over, I think we owe it to our audience to explain that even the number of the majorities seem to vary. In, you know, there were 5 in one part and 6 in another, and you just heard Maureen Mahoney refer to agreement by 7 justices. Agreement not necessarily, though, all part of a majority decision. Is that clear in your mind how that broke down?
5 justices agreed that essentially the case should be terminated. 2 other justices said, we agree that there was a constitutional violation here, but we think that there could be a remedy through a further recount, and we think it should occur. In some sense, they were splitting the difference, and their desire to have a recount was favorable to Vice President Gore, although their finding of a constitutional violation was favorable to Governor Bush. And then 2 other justices dissented completely. They thought that the Florida Supreme Court and the recount that had been going on was perfectly constitutional.
Dean Sullivan, we have seen so many twists and turns over the past 4.5 weeks that I'm compelled to ask you, are there any loopholes left here at all? Oh, we can't hear you yet. If someone would be nice enough to open your microphone, that would definitely help. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
I can, indeed.
Very good. There are no real loopholes left, Ted. The 5-4, there were really 3 rulings tonight. 7-2, there were equal protection problems with the way the recount was spread among the various counties. In other words, had the Florida Supreme Court brought all the votes disputed votes to be tabulated and counted in one place by one person according to the same standard, or even set a uniform standard, it might have been okay. 7-2, there was an equal protection violation in the way the votes were going to be recounted. But 5-4, it's too late to fix that. 5-4, it's too late to fix that because this is December 12th at midnight tonight. The clock tolls. And the 5-4 majority really was saying, since there wasn't enough time to count by today, it's too late under Florida's own interpretation of its own law to do the recount. 4 justices would have done the recount. So 5-4, they are saying it's over. But in doing so, what's striking is that the United States Supreme Court really decided to displace 2 other bodies. It displaced the Florida Supreme Court in the interpretation of Florida law, and it displaced Congress, which, as the 4 dissenters pointed out, might have resolved this entire question between now and January 5th if the Supreme Court hadn't precluded it. And finally, I guess the question is this like the case of the child who kills his parents and then pleads for mercy as an orphan? The Supreme Court, by issuing the stay on Saturday, contributed to a situation in which the recount couldn't have been conducted by a uniform standard by December 12th. And that's really the situation that is lamented by the dissenters who said, you should have let it go back. Let us come up with a uniform standard by December 18th when the Electoral College votes.
I think after all these many weeks of uncertainty, the American public is probably just going to be enormously relieved that it is over and probably doesn't have a great deal of appetite for the immediate or even the long-range consequences to our judicial system. But Maureen Mahoney, take on, if you would, at least the notion that is contained in a couple of those bitter dissents from justices who seem to be saying, we've done serious damage here to ourselves.
I guess what I don't understand is the court is supposed to resolve disputes. That's its role. And certainly this has to be one of the most important disputes that has ever come before it. This is a presidential election, a national election. They are the highest court in the land. And they have to, in the end, resolve cases by majority decision when they can't get unanimity. So I don't really see how the dissents can really say that this really calls into question somehow the legitimacy of the court simply because they can't reach an agreement. If they think it's important to have a unanimous decision, then it would certainly be up to the dissenters to stay silent. I think I certainly respect their rights to air their views, but I think we all have to understand that a 5-4 decision or a 7-2 decision, whatever the split might be, this is legitimate. This is the way the institution is supposed to function, and we all have to respect that decision.
Yeah, there is no question that you're right. A 5-4 decision is just as binding as a 9-0 decision. But Dean Sullivan, your thoughts for a moment on what the justices meant, the dissenters, when they really spoke rather ominously of the impact they feel this is going to have on the esteem in which the courts are held.
Well, Justice Stevens was most concerned in his bitter dissent about disrespect for the Florida State Supreme Court. But if there's some silver lining in the decision, it's that Justices Kennedy and O'Connor refused to go along with the most extreme form of the Bush campaign's attack on the Florida Supreme Court. Only 3 justices, Chief Justice Rehnquist and Justices Scalia and Thomas, went along with an extreme theory of Article 2 that would have said the Florida Supreme Court had no business being in this case at all, and only the Florida legislature could decide the outcome. Kennedy and O'Connor provided the 4th and 5th votes for a much narrower ruling that said, well, the Florida Supreme Court got one little thing wrong, how to do the recount. Unfortunately, at this late date, there's nothing we can do about it. So I think Justice Stevens is understandably frustrated, but the attack on the Florida Supreme Court is much less severe than it might have been, and that's really what Justice Stevens was talking about.
All right, before we stop looking at the judicial side of this, Professor Tushnet, any closing comment from you?
Well, it does seem to me that a lot of people are going to notice that this was a sharply ideological division between 5 conservatives and 4 relative liberals. And a lot of people are going to be skeptical that the breakdown would have been the same had the case been reversed and Governor Bush, Vice President Gore was trying to get the reversal of a decision by a favorable Republican-dominated court in a parallel case. I think that's what Justice Stevens and the dissenters are most concerned about.
All right. I thank all of you very much, Professor Tushnet, Dean Sullivan, Ms. Mahoney. Good of you to join us. I'm told that Ed Rendell, the chairman of the Democratic Party, is standing by live right now. Mr. Rendell, can you hear me? Mr. Rendell? Mr. Rendell? Does Mr. Rendell... He can't hear. I'll tell you what, let's take a short break, and by the time we come back, I hope he will be able to hear me.
Did you want to be alone?
Oh, no.
No?
Not at all.
Okay.
The irony is I started doing this to be part of the crowd. And now...
Me too.
Oh, do you...
No, I just quit. Nicoderm CQ.
Aren't the cravings unbearable?
Well, I'm not jumping, if that's what you're thinking. No. CQ is good on the cravings. It's strong medicine. It's with you 24 hours. It works.
Nicoderm CQ, now in a clear patch too, for a more personal way to quit.
Quit, huh?
Hey, join the crowd.
Hey!
Sorry. It's just too fun to drive. The all-new Civic Coupe from Honda. Amazing, but true.
Hey, what are you putting in over there?
DirecTV system.
Satellite, huh? I already got like 70 cable channels.
Well, this thing can get over 225 if you want them, all 100% digital quality.
It's on. It's on. Unbelievable. I have a riding mower.
That's great, sir.
Now get free professional installation when you buy a DirecTV system and sign up for Total Choice programming.
Come on, let's go.
Sweetie, I'm sorry. I can't stand the line. We're going to miss our flight. Well, I wish you could go too. Yes, I know how much you love Walt Disney World, but we can't take you with us this time. Well, for one thing, I don't think your wife and children would appreciate it.
Okay. If you think a Walt Disney World vacation isn't the same without the kids, you're absolutely right. Call 1-407-WDisney and make the dream come true.
That new boss is from another planet.
Totally spaced out at that meeting.
Hey, what's that on your desk?
abcnews.com. Ready when you are.
Nathan, what is taking you so long?
Just give me a second, would you, Mom?
Come on, hurry up. I have a hair appointment at 2, and now he can't have children. Nathan, make sure it's not too restrictive. Come on, let me see how my Snooky looks.
I look stupid.
You do look stupid.
Get a plan that's right for you, like Bell South Rollover, including unlimited local nights and weekends. We also feature Ericsson digital phones, now at your local Bell South Mobility store.
And joining me now live, the chairman of the Democratic Party, Ed Rendell. Mr. Rendell, can you hear me now?
Yes, Ted, how are you?
Good. You've apparently got some senior members of the Democratic Party steaming because of your earlier statement that Vice President Gore should act now and concede. You want to reconsider what you said?
No, that was based on the assumption. We were discussing it on another cable network. We were discussing that the opinion was final and definitive. If the opinion is final and definitive, obviously, there are no avenues for us to pursue. But should the Vice President have the opportunity to meet with his legal team and go over the 6 opinions that are at least appear to be very confusing to determine whether it's final and definitive, sure he should. I mean, he's fought very, very hard. He won the popular vote. Many of us believe that if 35,000 double votes had been counted, and we know they can't be legally counted, that we won Florida. So I think he has every right to proceed. Have I lost? David, we seem to have lost it.
Stand by, Your Honor. That was Daniel Latches.
Can you hear me now, Mr.
Yes,
Rendell?
I can, Ted. I apologize.
Okay, no, that's certainly not your fault. We just got this from one of my colleagues who says this has to be attributed to sources close to the Vice President. We are downright angry that the court took this, stayed this, and then ran up the clock on its own, and then released it 2 hours before the deadline, by the way. So now we're angry, and there's the political will to fight it. If there is any way to fight this on the remand, that's what we're going to do. We're looking for a constitutionally permissible standard.
And that's absolutely correct. If there is a constitutionally permissible standard to continue this, I think we should. I couldn't disagree more with the decision, Ted. I think there are 5 days left, or 6 days, until the actual electors have to vote. I think the court should have bent over backwards to find a remedy to allow the votes to be counted. But if, in fact, that's not the case, then obviously we have no alternative. And that's all I meant to say.
Forgive my ignorance. I don't know if you're a lawyer. I'm not.
I am.
But I don't know of any superior legal body in the country to the U.S. Supreme Court.
There is none.
They have rendered their decision. I've just been talking to 3 legal scholars. They all seem to believe it's over. The fat lady has sung. And there does come a point.
That may be so. That may be so. But they did remand the case. And they remanded the case for what, we don't know. It may have been just for cleanup, but it may have been that there is an avenue open. And does the vice president deserve a little bit of time to take a look at that with his legal team? I mean, remember, Ted, there's 6 opinions. I don't think anybody out there has probably had the opportunity to read all 6 yet. So obviously he deserves some time. But if in fact it's over, I believe the vice president will concede. He has said he's not going to contest electors. We're not going to try to steal electors. He's going to do what is right. And he's said on more than one occasion, if the law of the land is there, we are in fact going to admit it, and Governor Bush is going to be his president too. But I think they deserve the time to look at this opinion. Does it appear to be over? Yes, it does. But on the other hand, they just remanded as well as reversed.
Yeah, I don't think there's a person in the country, almost certainly including Governor Bush, who isn't willing to give the vice president, the night to sleep on it and tomorrow morning to talk to all his best aides about this. But I'm going to ask you a political question now. After tomorrow, I think Americans are going to be a little bit upset if the decision is made to fight this on purely political grounds. Don't you agree?
Well, I don't think we can fight it on political grounds. I think there has to be an available legal remedy. And that's what I think the vice president and his team is going to look for. And if there is an available legal remedy, and that can be explained to the people, I think that it should be pursued. Remember, we've had a very historic decision here. As the dissent has said, Ted, we have a decision saying that we can't count votes that have been uncounted basically because we ran out of time. Well, we haven't run out of time. In many ways, we've still got till the 18th. But again, if the vice president's lawyers look at this and tell him there is no avenue to pursue legally, I think he will do the right thing and try to bring this country together. But they certainly do deserve the opportunity to do that. And what I was responding to was an opinion by legal analysts that this was final and definitive. If it is, I have no doubt the vice president will try to unify the country.
All right. Mr. Randell, I thank you very much for joining us. Sorry for the technical inconvenience.
Probably our fault.
Good of you to be with us.
Thank you.
Joining us now from Austin, Texas, ABC News' Dean Reynolds, who covers Governor George W. Bush, and here in Washington, outside the vice president's home, ABC News' Terry Moran, who has been covering Al Gore. And what are you hearing? Is there anything to this notion that they might yet fight it?
Well, Ted, I've talked with people who have talked with the vice president. They describe him as realistic. He's getting a download of information, they say, from his lawyers and from his political advisors here. There is anger in the Gore camp. There is a sense that the Supreme Court acted precipitously to award the presidency to George Bush. But there's also realism on the part of Al Gore in particular. They will move forward here. They say he wants to speak tomorrow. They say don't assume that he will concede, but he is getting the legal advice that we heard along the lines that we heard earlier, that this is a very tough blow for his campaign. Now, I should also say he was in the House with his wife, Tipper Gore, when the decision came down. There was a feeling of just despair right through the Gore ranks when it did come down, from what we could tell. And that is where they are right now, trying to assess their options and getting the best legal advice they can.
I'm assuming, Terry, that you could hear Mr. Rendell, and basically what he's saying is reasonable enough. Give the man and his lawyers at least a chance to read the decision and be sure that it says what people think it says. But I'm asking you now to project perhaps more than you're willing to. Can you imagine the vice president taking it much beyond tomorrow?
Well, only if there is perhaps a sign from the Florida Supreme Court tomorrow that they're willing to take it up somehow and find a way to certify some slate of electors. That sounds like a dream scenario, a fantasy world, if you will. Al Gore is a fighter. There's no question about it. He's demonstrated it in the past month, but he's also nothing if not rational, sometimes perhaps hyper-rational. His aides have said that once he comes to the conclusion in his own mind that it's over, he will finish it quickly, and they say honorably, although they do point out something that has been talked about in the Gore camp tonight. The line from Justice Stevens' dissent in which he said, "We may never know who really won this presidential election." And you might hear Al Gore say something along those lines if he does concede, withdraw is what I should say, because he will not say, we have already been told, I lost and Governor Bush won.
Dean Reynolds in Austin, is there still some patience within the Bush camp? Are they willing to give the vice president that much leeway? Will we not hear from the governor until after we have heard from the vice president?
That's what we've been told, Ted. Yeah, they want to give the vice president a decent interval. But, you know, I was struck by Jim Baker's statement this evening. It was short, it was guarded, there was no elation, there was almost deflation, frankly, at the course of events. This is not the way the governor wanted to win this. He wanted a clear decision, certainly from the people on election night. Then he wanted a clear-cut decision by the court. He wanted to be able to come out tonight and say, the court has spoken and the results are final. Now he's in a position of saying the court has spoken and they're just as divided as the rest of the country over whether I should be president. This has got to be frustrating for the Bush people, but a win is a win.
What do you think he's going to say when he comes out tomorrow? Is it your, I mean, we have heard all this talk over the last few weeks that he has in fact been preparing for the presidency, that he has been picking his cabinet, he has been picking his staff. They have been moving along as though this day would finally come. Is he ready?
If he comes out tomorrow, let's let the vice president move first as their position. Yeah, sure, this speech has been written and rewritten and drafted and redrafted, and you've heard dribs and drabs of it come out in what the governor has said over the last few weeks as he's responded tit for tat to the vice president. Basically, the message will be that I'm going to try to unify the country. We've had an imperfect result, but the result is I won, and that's basically what he's going to say. I would expect to hear some of his legislative goals as well. We've heard those over the last couple of weeks, too. But beyond that, I think really what the governor has to do is try to cement the notion that he is the great unifier that he claimed to be during the campaign.
Dean Reynolds, Terry Moran, thank you both very much. We'll be back with more in a moment.
You know my friend Mr. Moretti, he worries about the arthritis in my hands. So he came with me to the doctor.
Tylenol Arthritis Pain Extended Relief. As effective as the most prescribed arthritis pain medicine, but gentler to your stomach.
Mr. Moretti says I have beautiful hands.
Tylenol Arthritis Pain. Take comfort in our strength. And now introducing a Flexaglucosamine, a supplement to help promote healthy joints.
We can expect in the coming months. His Director of Product Development, Paul Noons.
Got it. Nortel Networks is building the new high-performance internet, the wireless internet, with optical technology that makes it faster.
Overall, this has been an exciting
and more
year.
reliable.
But the next few months will mark the beginning of a new Gesundheit.
Come together.
In fact, with technology changing
over me.
The Bowl Championship Series, as much a part of college football as ABC Sports. On New Year's Day, Washington faces Purdue in the Rose Bowl presented by AT&T. Then Oregon State meets Notre Dame in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. January 2nd, Miami takes on Florida in the Nokia Sugar Bowl. And on January 3rd, number 1 Oklahoma battles number 2 Florida State for the national championship in the FedEx Orange Bowl. The Bowl Championship Series begins January 1st, only on ABC.
Have you finished yours yet? Finish your holiday shopping at Profit's 2-day sale. This Tuesday and Wednesday, save 25 to 60% store-wide on great gift-giving items like sweaters for her, leather coats for him and her, jewelry, crystal, luggage, cookware, and warm-down bedding. Plus, take an extra 30 to 50% off selected red tag clearance items and look for 1-hour riot specials on Tuesday. Profit's 2-day sale. Open extended hours Tuesday and Wednesday.
News 2 Instasports. This thing is really starting to catch on.
Hey, John, guess who else has signed up? We got Father Ryan, Oakland, Brentwood Beach, and Portland.
Schools all over Middle Tennessee are signing up and signing on for News 2 Instasports.
Hey, did you tell them it's free?
It's free, it's easy. Just log on to WKRN.com.
Hey, what about the ticker?
Yes, John, the ticker. Scores and schedules at least 3 times a week.
So tell them to sign up.
News 2 Instasports. Please sign up today.
Vanderbilt Sports Medicine, putting athletes of all ages back in the game.
And joining us now here in Washington, David Gergen, editor-at-large of U.S. News and World Report, and from New York, ABC News analyst George Stephanopoulos. George, there are a couple of people on the Gore team who are warning some of our reporters tonight, don't make the same mistake you guys made on election night. Don't declare a winner before this thing is over. This thing is over, isn't it?
It sure seems like that to me, Ted, and I think as your legal analyst earlier pointed out, the majority, at least, in the Supreme Court seem to say, listen, if this isn't done by the 12th, this is over. The Florida system was unconstitutional. And I think that as the day goes on tomorrow, and the Gore campaign has said that the vice president will come out and speak tomorrow, the vice president will recognize that fact somehow in his statement. But I want to pick up on, I think, an important distinction that I think Terry Moran talked about. Certainly when the vice president comes out and makes a statement, he will be gracious. He will pledge that he will support George W. Bush as he becomes president of the United States. I don't think you'll hear anything like the traditional code words, though, of the people have spoken. I mean, one of the core tenets of the Gore campaign here is that the votes of all the people have not been counted here, that we don't know what the full will of the people was. And I think Gore would want to preserve that principle and that stand even as he gets out of the race.
Is there any way, David, that can be done without a general feeling sweeping through at least parts of the land that, when it's over, you have to do what you can to bring the country back together again, and this is no time to be beginning campaign 2004?
I think that's right, Ted. I think the vice president, after he's had some sleep and he's had a chance to see the cold light of day, will do quote the right thing, and I think he will declare it's over, and he will not only ask for the country to be united, but I think he will hold off on any 2004 kind of preparations. His own Supreme Court legal advisor, Larry Tribe, has said tonight that it's over and that he should graciously concede defeat. Other Democrats and other lawyers are obviously saying that. So I believe very strongly that the vice president, while he's angry, while he feels a sense that that the Supreme Court has done a terrible injustice to him, that the election has never been won, or there's never been a full and fair count. He may feel that very deeply, and I think a lot of his supporters will say those things. I think he himself will be dignified when this is tomorrow, and I think we'll see a concession speech by tomorrow night, by prime time tomorrow night.
George, David is right when he quotes Larry Tribe as saying what he quoted, but Larry Tribe has also backed off, just as Ed Rendell backed off on this broadcast a few moments ago. And quite clearly, people on the Gore team are saying, stop it. Everybody shut up until we have a chance to read this decision and until we have a chance to be absolutely sure that there is not even the slightest loophole here. Is that your impression of what's going on?
Oh, I think that's exactly right, Ted. I think that they clearly want this, and they always said before tonight's decision that they would want to give the vice president time to read, to absorb the decision, to internalize the decision, and also to write his speech. He has not wanted to face the prospect of losing. He's been the eternal optimist of all the people in his campaign throughout this. He was the one that correctly called that they would win in the Florida Supreme Court. So he hasn't really, I think, had the time to prepare the words that he would want to deliver to the country. But when you look at even the most optimistic Gore advisors believe that December 18th is an effective deadline. And when you look at this decision, when you look at the fact that even if they went to the Florida Supreme Court and the Florida Supreme Court accepted it, they would have to get a standard for the recounts. They would have to get that standard approved by the Florida Supreme Court and then implemented by the lower courts. Clearly, the Bush campaign, if it got that far, would bring that right back up to the Supreme Court. The clock would run out quite quickly. I think the Gore campaign will realize that, and the speech, as David said, will be tomorrow.
Anything you want to say in closing, David? Any thoughts that have come to you as you have watched this extraordinary evening bring an end to what is surely the most extraordinary 5 weeks in American political history?
Well, I think that, Ted, that the election is over, but the war goes on politically. This is Antietam in this civil war between Republicans and Democrats. It's not Gettysburg. I think the Republicans are going to rejoice tonight. They will argue that the Supreme Court has stepped in and prevented the Gore people and the Florida Democrats and the Florida Supreme Court from hijacking this election. They will think this is justice. The Democrats will feel that these have been on the U.S. Supreme Court. These are 9 politicians masquerading in black robes, that in fact it's been an ideological partisan decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, and they're going to carry their battle elsewhere. I think that George Bush will get a salute. It's going to be brief. I think his period of governance is going to be difficult, and I think we're in for some real political struggles in the months ahead.
George, closing thought?
Ted, maybe justice served, the Republicans think, but I don't think you're going to see much joy on that side. What the Supreme Court has done tonight is perhaps deny Al Gore his chance to get a recount and perhaps the presidency, but they haven't done George W. Bush any favors.
Sometimes it's necessary to see things in black and white. So here's tomorrow morning's Washington Post. Court overturns recounts, giving Bush the presidency. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
A world television event. Imagine having to let one of your children die so the other can live. The story that transfixed the world. Primetime Thursday.
Mary, Mother of Christ. Surprising details of a life that continues to inspire so much love. Beyond the Mystique. In Search of Mary, 2020 Friday.